for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet whose stern impassioned stress a thoroughfare for freedom be across the wilderness. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, so beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet whose stern impassioned stress a thoroughfare for freedom be across the wilderness. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Color Guard, present colors. May the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Now we'll be leading in the national anthem.
we gather not only as a church, but as a grateful people. On this Memorial Day, we pause to honor the men and women who gave their lives in service to this country. They stood in the gap, defending our daily freedoms. Because of the brave, we are free. Free to speak, free to live, free to worship the one who gives eternal freedom. Jesus Christ, who laid down his life so that we might live not only in freedom today, but in freedom forever. The Apostle John reminds us, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Today we remember that love. We remember the courage, the sacrifice, the selflessness of every soldier who laid down their life not only for their country, but for each one of us. We will always honor your sacrifice.
Please be seated. Friends, welcome to Valley Presbyterian Church for our annual Memorial Day service and celebration. I want to thank Troop 441 and our bagpiper for presenting the colors for us today. They're also going to lead us toward the end of the service as we move from the sanctuary out in the Memorial Garden for the conclusion of the service and for some ice cream. So you're all encouraged to follow them in that special moment. There are times, friends, when there are immediate sacrifices that are final and noble, particular heroic moments that preserve freedom, that defeat evil, and that protect the innocent. And we have a list of names in our bulletin today, and I want to update that list. These are people who have served our country in the various armed forces and then whose names we remember since they have passed into the hands of God. I'm going to update those. They include in the U.S. Air Force James Bennett, Webb Sandbolt, whose life we celebrated this past weekend, Dick Williamson, in the U.S. Army, James Dwight, Larry McGregor, and our own Terry Thomas, and in the U.S. Navy, William Nye. There are these times of immediate sacrifice, and I was reminded of that this past week when I read about the fact that May 5 is Liberation Day in the Netherlands. And in small towns all over that country, there are moments where the towns celebrate that time when American troops expelled the Nazis. Margaten is one of those towns in the Netherlands. In that cemetery outside of the town are buried 8,301 Americans, young Americans who died to free that town. Starting in 1945, the locals adopted the graves of these 8,301 Americans. All these years later, 80 years later, each of those white marble crosses is maintained by a citizen of that small town. There are more than 1,000 people on the waiting list to care for a grave. And only about 30 to 50 graves become available each year because people pass that task on to children and to grandchildren. On this day, we remember those who have made sacrifices, and we also remember that in our generation, it's our task to pass on that patriotism and that commitment to rising generations. There are moments of heroic sacrifice, and there are also ongoing lives who are lived sacrificially, hour after hour, day after day. Men and women in our armed forces and in our reserves work to restrain violence and to prepare for and to prevent war, to hold back and contain the forces all over the globe, inside and outside of countries that work to destroy freedom and liberty. In honor of them, let's pray. Gracious God, in this solemn and beautiful moment, grow our appreciation for what it means to follow you in the land of the free and in the home of the brave, where we acknowledge our debt to those heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved and mercy more than life. As that great hymn, America the Beautiful, says, mend our every flaw, confirm our souls in self-control, and our precious liberty in law. May we be rich, not only in things, but in soul, and may all our success become nobleness and every gain divine. Lord, in this dangerous world where there's terror and exploitation and destruction, bless all who serve and their precious families, and guide all who make the difficult decisions about how best to create and maintain a just order in this world until that day when you bring your kingdom of light and truth and peace to this earth and to our cosmos. We ask this in your Son's great name, and all God's people said. Our scripture today is a passage from John chapter 15 in which Jesus says, I give you a new commandment, and that commandment is to love one another. You can do no greater thing. As we heard in our video today, you can do no greater thing than to be willing to lay down your life for your friends.
All we've been given by those who came before, the dream of a nation where freedom would endure. The work and prayers of centuries have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Each generation, from the plains to distant shore, with the gifts that they were given, were determined to leave more. Valiant battles fought together, acts of conscience fought alone. These are the seeds from which America has grown. Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. For those who think they have nothing to share, who fear in their hearts there is no hero there, know each quiet act of dignity is that which fortifies the soul of a nation that never dies. Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, 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 America. I gave my best to you.
You can sense how hard it is for the preaching to keep up with the music in this church, right? Thank you, Janina and Joni. Well, we are very blessed today on this 26th of May, 2025, to have a special speaker. He is Major Jeremiah Engelman, and he is not unknown to us here in this congregation because he helps to lead the development of the leaders in the front in our Boy Scout troop. He's the advancement chair, which means, for those of you not familiar with Boy Scouts, that as Boy Scouts move through the different stages of leadership development, ultimately culminating in Eagle, They are responsible to him. He encourages them in that involved and difficult process, and our troop produces a lot of eagles. He is a local man who went to South Mountain High School, grew up in Tempe, went to ASU. I'm sorry, U of A folks. He went to ASU and holds 2 degrees there in the most difficult of engineering subjects, electrical engineering. But he is here today because he's a 25-year U.S. Army veteran who is full-time in the Arizona National Guard. He is the operations officer for the 850th Military Police Battalion and Protection Branch Chief. And that means he is responsible for the force protection of more than and well-being of more than 6,000 guardsmen at facilities all across our state. He has served in a number of deployments overseas in the global war on terror, and they include in Bosnia-Herzegovina with NATO, in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom at Guantanamo Bay, Operation Enduring Freedom, and in Kosovo, once again, with NATO. I wonder if you would welcome with a round of applause our special speaker, Major Jeremiah Engelman.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Major Jeremiah Engelman, appreciate the lovely introduction. It's a little challenging here. We're here to celebrate Memorial Day and recognize the folks who've made that ultimate sacrifice. So it's hard to stand up here, listen to someone talk about me, talk about myself. So I'm not going to stop, but I'm at least going to try and frame it and why that's important for you to know more about me. All right. So as you mentioned, I am the advancement chair, and I've got a couple of boys in this troop here at Valley Presbyterian. I want to start offering a personal thanks to the congregation, to everybody involved. We're chartered here originally in '61, and they've supported us throughout. It's absolutely amazing and allows us to do amazing things. We've raised generations of young men, putting them on the path to being successful. So thank you very much personally. Probably not saying too much to speak for the rest of the troop as well. We couldn't do it without you. I am a 4th generation scout. I've got a couple of 5th generation scouts right now with the troop, and God's blessing, hopefully some 6th generation scouts out there in the future. So we'll keep pushing forward, but thank you very much. Who I am, what have I done? 25-year veteran, originally enlisted in the Army, just kind of flapping around down there at U of A. See, I got them both in there, all right? And I didn't quite have that purpose or direction, so I enlisted, went out, and the Army taught me what I wanted to do. It was amazing, and I did my 3 years, and I came back. I graduated a couple of times from ASU, and that last day before I left my active duty station, I decided the Arizona Army National Guard was the right place for me. I could go get my degree and, still get somebody to help pay for school. So I tell this story. It's not very exciting. There's some folks out here in the audience who have that true call to service, right? They heard the impassioned pleas, the brilliant words from our senior leaders, and they stepped up and they answered the call, and they made the hard choices. They went to the dangerous places to defend our freedom, to defend our families, to defend our way of life. I didn't lack in purpose and direction. I was a pre-9/11 enlistee, all right? So I want to talk about, a couple of things, and that first one is my call to service, right? I was a pre-9/11 enlistee, which meant, it's just another job, right? Everything changed overnight. We were in a pre-mobilization training for a few upcoming deployment to Bosnia-Herzegovina with the Aviation Regiment, and I remember the company commander coming in, waking everybody up, that there'd been a terrorist attack on the World Trade Center there in New York. Kind of catches you by surprise. You're out in the field. You lack context. We were sort of disconnected from everything, and we still go about our lives and we do our things. The place that really made a difference, and I talk about the call to service. Mine isn't particularly interesting, but that first time that I met peers, friends who had enlisted for the purpose, in response to those events, those post-September 11th enlistees. They are the ones who felt that same call, that same impassioned plea from their leaders, the need to step up and be the one who defends their family, their friends, their neighbors, their communities. So I've seen that firsthand and that amount of passion, and I remember the first one that I met. His name was Zachary Cheever. I actually met him on my deployment to Iraq. This was pre-surge, this was 2004, so the Wild West, the battle days. Spent 11 months and 2 weeks on the streets of Baghdad, specifically in the Abu Ghraib district. So I'm a military policeman, mentioned with the MP battalion. And so I have met, in the course of that journey, like I said, I met Zach, who joined because of the attacks, on his way of life. He'd lost a brother in Afghanistan who'd made the same choice. So I've seen the point that I'm slightly getting at there, aside just to recognize their contributions and their commitment, is that for each one of us, it's going to be different, right? My call to service was I needed purpose and direction. My buddies there who answered the call, they had that purpose and direction, and they knew this was how they meet it. Why do I keep coming back, right? We can say the global war on terror is behind us. We've got, these abstract threats about what we face in the future, and yet, I kept enlisting, I commissioned, and now I'm on this sort of indefinite tour. I've got my 20-year letter in my pocket for half a decade now, and I still have some runway. I'm still having fun, and I still love what I do. And it's because here in the Arizona National Guard, I do more than just support that sort of abstract, high concept, defend our freedom. Okay, I also work and support our communities. So it's going to lead me into talking about the price of service. All right, so that's thing number 2. I can only remember 3 things, and it's easy to count to. So I'm going to try and stay on time here. And the price of service, and that's what today is all about. My deployment to Iraq, pre-surge, Wild West, was, one of the, at that time in the conflict, there were a lot of casualties taken. My company, the 860th MP Company, was put together out of water purification technicians, some folks who reclassified, some transportation and infantry folks. They pieced us together, taught us how to be military policemen, and sent us overseas as a brand new unit activated. We had no cohesion, no training, no experience together outside of our training windows. And in that case, we had 2 KIA. We lost an entire platoon's worth of folks, so 30 to 42 people, to various injuries and other losses. We had to break down a platoon and reconsolidate. And also, the war doesn't stop the day you get on the plane, all right? In total, my company is of about, if you'll let me hand wave a little bit of numbers, of about 160 folks who deployed. Maybe that was 174. We've lost more than 10% of that number to suicide since we've been back. So it doesn't stop. All right, these are the prices that they're paid. These are the prices that we all bear. And these are the prices that our brothers and sisters agreed to pay. All right, so it doesn't come without a price, and I know everyone out here has their own stories and their own connections. Today isn't about me. It's specifically not about me, right? It's about Corporal Jeremiah Robinson and Sergeant Howard P. Allen, and that's why we're here, to be able to take those moments. We've got entire, not a flyer, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, bulletin, there we go. Full of people who've made those choices and those commitments. So thank you to every single person out here. It's easy for me to make the choice, get on the plane and go. Easy. It's easy. It's my choice. It's what I'm doing. It's you folks who stay behind. It's the family. It's the loved ones. It's the moms. It's the dads. It's the kids who pay the price for every single thing that we do. It is a shared burden by the country. It's something we recognize today that we never stop remembering. So I want to thank all of you for that. Finally, since we want to look a little bit towards the future here, we want to talk about your call to service. All right? I'm not out here to recruit, but I do feel it's important that we support each other. We support our communities. We support our families. You're called to service, right? This isn't anything new to you. You support your classrooms, you support your families, you support your troop, you support your community, you support those who, may be less fortunate or, who just need your experience to teach them something more and bigger. So I point this out only to say that, describing my call to service, the call to service of some of the folks out here and and some of my friends and peers, it isn't about saying you need to find that same motivation, that same thing to activate you. And it also doesn't mean you need to answer the call in the same way that I did, right? You have the opportunity, you've got your community, you've got people who their calling is to go be a doctor, to go be a firefighter, to go be a police officer, to go be a teacher, to come here and work and spread the good word, right? There are lots of calls to be answered, but they all serve your family, your community, your state, and your country. So I'm not going to try and push you into any direction. You'll hear it. When you get that calling, you'll know what it is, and you'll know where to go, and hopefully you're listening for it. But what you do need to do, and this is a very real present and part of the challenge we're dealing with, you must prepare yourself, okay? Educated. We need smart, educated, knowledgeable, worldly individuals, whatever that's going to be, whether it's here, preaching, sharing the faith, whether it's in the classrooms, whether it's, on the streets enforcing the law, whether it is, behind in a uniform out here doing the job. You need to be smart, okay? You need to be physically fit, all right? You've been given a gift with your life. Take advantage of it. Be smart, be strong, be healthy, okay? Spiritually, prepare yourself, all right? Things are hard. Life is hard. Challenges abound. You need to be able to get through that. We talk about resilience, okay? It's not about surviving that punch. It's about getting up and getting ready to do it again. You get knocked down, stand up and do it again, all right? You don't learn that overnight. Part of what you do here, and I'm speaking to the scouts specifically, is that you're in the troop, you're given a safe place to fail. We don't expect you to be successful. If we'd wanted success, we'd have, Mr. Skidmore over there planning everything, executing, and you just do what he says. There's no training value in that for you. Your ability to get out and fail in a safe space is what will make you successful in the future. And you'll find those places everywhere in your life. Here, supporting the church, same opportunities, take advantage of them. And then morally, know what is right. Live that, stand up for it. And I say this because every day you're going to get a little bit older, you're going to get to high school, the choices get a little more muddy. You look at what's popular in media, online, and movies and whatnot, what you want to emulate. Not all of it is necessarily good behavior. And you don't know what that is yet. So when I talk about preparing yourself in terms of your education, your physical fitness, your spiritual preparation, and preparing yourself morally, this is all going to matter to be successful. Grit and determination is going to get you there. This is the groundwork. All right. So I think that was 3 things. I talked about my call to service, the price of service, and hopefully talk a little bit about your call to service and encourage you to listen for that and prepare yourself for it. But I do want to close on just a couple of notes that what you do matters. What you do matters. Every single person in this room makes a difference in every little bit, right? You can get into your sort of quantum physical explanation of the world. Well, all matter is, the interactions of all matter define, behavior in the universe. So we could talk about emotional commitments and how those ties bind us together and guide our actions. But what you do matters. Remember that. Be part of what you love, okay? That gets back to that calling, identifying it. I am here because I have a good time. I love putting on this uniform. I have a great time. I care about the work I do, the people I support, and every time I drive a truck into something, I laugh and I laugh and I laugh. And thank you for paying for the truck. I appreciate it. It makes me happy, it really does. All right, but I love what I'm doing. That doesn't mean you need to only do what you love. Do what you're best at. And if those things align, that you're in for good shape. But make a difference where you think change is needed, all right? We don't do this job because it's easy. We do it because it's hard. We do it because it needs doing. And it's not always been done the right way. If you see something that could be done better, it's constant improvement, no matter where you're at, in the troop, in your life, at your job, with your family, any of those things. Make it better if you can make a difference, or you see a place of difference. Be willing to do that. Be brave and willing to step up and make that change. And then finally, not everything needs to change. You can look around and identify places where things are going well, or your ideals are important to you. Okay, support those things. It's just as important that you support what you love and feel shouldn't change as the things that you think should. So once again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I know it was a little bit all around the place, but today is an important day to remember the sacrifices of others. I appreciate you taking the time to remember that with me and give me a moment to speak my friends' names and share that with you. So thank you.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we raise our voices in a joyful prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
This is a time to observe the National Moment of Remembrance. For just one short time, Americans everywhere are asked to remember those who have served their country, and especially all the men and women who died in service to our country, or served their country and later died, and to remember the families of Valley Presbyterian members who are represented by each of the names on this final roll call.
From the United States Air Force, Charles Adams, Bob Armstrong, Walter E. Auk, Alva N. Bowers, Junius Bowman, Oscar A. Butt, Richard Carpenter, Dr. Robert Christensen, Gordon R. Churchill, Raymond Bruce Clark, John Cochran, William N. Crawford, Stephen Fairbanks Davis, Jackson Drake, William H. Du Bois Jr., Charles Dunlap, Keith Fenton, John H. Gillen, John L. Greil, Robert Gould.
Morgan King Harris Jr., Fred Hassick, Reverend W. James Henderson, John L. Holmes, Ludwig Huck, Ken Husband, Paul A. Johnson, Francis Jones, Tom L. Larson, Paul Leary, Robert Ledley, Lloyd Arthur Mack, William Lloyd Mack, Richard Malek, Bob McCall, Hamilton McRae III, Kevin A. McGregor, James McGregor, Seth J. McKee, Willard Munsterman, Edward Nees, Tovio A. Pataho, Raymond M. Red Phillips,
Charles Polk, Kenneth E. Richter Sr., Brian Robinson, Thomas Robinson, John E. Savoy, Charles M. Sheldon, Robert Dean Schoenhauer, Donald R. Shrake, Terry W. States, William Stearns, Harry Strachan, Peoples S. Tatum Jr., Harold G. Tennyson, Arthur Tomchuk, Carl E. Voldang, M.D., William Walker, Henry H. Womble, David Weingart, James Whitcomb, Ivan Wiles, Lowell J. Williamson, Horace M. Wynn, E. E. Bud Wolf.
From the United States Army, John J. Atkins, Harold Ellis Alsbach, Roy Anderson, Douglas G. Arner, Donald K. Atwood, John Bacon, Vernon C. Bailey II, Robert Bard, John Bartness, M.D., Roy Bateman, Fern Bathurst, Kelly Berkeley, M.D., Harry Don Brown, John Bud Burnett, Donald Guy Campbell, Lyle Carlson, Maurice Coburn, John M. Cochran, Dexter Bud Connor, Merle A. Courtwright, Nathan Crane, David Crawford, Joseph Lane Davis, Michael B. Defile, Jay Devine, Robert G. Drew, Wilbur DuBois, Robert Duckworth, Mario Fagnoli, Peter Fanger, Donald Few, Howard G. Fisher, James L. Foster III, Gene Fox, Orland Freeman, Lee French, Philip French, Franklin French, Paul Gleave, James Rodney Gray,
Harrison Green, Reverend Harry Griffiths, Donald Hale, Kenneth Hansen, Carol Swan Harmon, Fred R. Hayes, Milton W. Heath Jr., David P. Heakin, William H. Hine, James Pierce Hensley, George Hill, James G. Hipple, George Horth, William J. Hodges, Glenn Ellis Hofto, Kelvin M. Holman, Charles Homan, Donald Homan, Ralph Homan, Samuel Hoover, Sylvester Hubbard, Edward Hughes, Gene H. Jacoby, Samuel Carlton Jennings, Roger Jones Sr., Bill Kiesler, Leonard W. Kirby, George W. Kochheiser Jr., Joseph Kolar, Wallace Lancaster, Paul Robert Leary, Robert Ledley, Alfred A. Lee, Edward M. Maddock, Richard Maine, William McBay, Robert McCreary, Earl McDowell, Edward McDowell, Charles O. McGregor, N. Patrick McGregor, Robert D. McGregor, Robert McKee, Ronald D. McKibben, Fred Merkel, John Mitchell, James Moeller,
James G. Moore, Harold Mulder, Jacob H. Mulder, Harris D. Murley, M.D., Donald M. Neal, Gerald Bob H. O'Brien, Larry L. O'Brien, Dr. Edward N. Edding, Ben Ornburn, David Platter, Jesse Pogue, Fred Reed Jr., H. William S. Richards, Frank L. Reha, Dorothy Reeser, Kenneth Royer, Edward K. Sawyer, Todd E. Schlemeyer, Harry E. Schultz, Donald B. Schwen, Jack A. Siegfried, Douglas J. Sigler, George H. Sigler, Harold E. Simmons, Gene P. Smith, Leonard L. Smith, Ralph B. Smith, Vern H. Smith, Anton D. Soderman, Marion Spikes, Robert L. Staley,
Howard R. Stickle Jr., Betty Jane Kloss Stickney, James W. Sterling, Kenneth C. Sweeney, Eugene S. Tarr, Arnold J. Thielman, David M. Thomas, Gerald E. Thomas, William Tizard, William K. Toy, Eugene F. Trumbull, Leonard Turpin, John Tussey, David C. Van Westrinen, Paul Van Wee,
Owen L. Wagner, William F. Walker, Edgar Thomas Weeks Jr., Thomas Weeks III, Harold Wendorf, Louis Werner Jr., Franklin M. Westrop, Alan Willert, Harrison Lewis Winter, Douglas Meade Woodland, Richard C. Wright.
From the United States Marine Corps, Donovan Don Atkins, Dale V. Anderson, Henry Hank Anderson, John Farnham, Bob Frank, Joseph Fritter, Guy P. Gumble Jr., Hale Henneman, Arthur Heimbaugh, Maury Hull, Robert A. Larabelle, Franklin T. Lindsay, John B. McClellan, James T. Nichols, Miles Overholt, William Owens, John Preston, Leo Randall, Kenneth Resch, Craig K. Reynolds, Joseph Schaubaker, Donald F. Schaller, Glenn C. Schuler, Jack H. Schuler, Kenneth W. Sefton, Emerson Sellers, Melvin K. Sigler, Franklin E. Sigler, William C. Sigler, Glenn W. Smith, Ralph Thomas, Howard Whitler, and Walter Ziegler Jr.
From the United States Navy, Roy E. Alderson, Ralph D. Anderson, John Anthony, Helen Babian, Walter Babian Sr., Curtis Barker, Edward H. Barron, Thomas W. Bauer, M.D., George Beale, Charles Reed Bell, Arthur Bellish, James Edward Bennett Jr., John Berta, Robert J. Black, Harris Blomeyer, Ralph Bauer, Thomas F. Buchanan, William M. Carson, Kenneth Clark, Fred Damon, Ben Davis, Margaret Davis, James R. Daylor, George Domas, Russell Donker, Paul F. Dowd, Robert L. Dressel, Joe B. Espinosa, Ronald Evans, Gordon Farrar, Carl Forsgren, William Lloyd Franklin, Milton E. Franz, George Freiberghaus, Dr. Jerry D. Fuller, Richard Funk, Guy Gamble Jr., Frank P. Gibney, Robert B. Gildersleeve, Lester Goss, Charles A. Grebenstein.
Denton S. Green, George M. Green, Doctor of Education, James R. Greenwell, Hugh L. Hamilton, Donald Harper, Nathaniel Hathaway, Charles J. Hedgehall, James Hensley, Lee L. Henry, Nell Hill, Arthur E. Heimbaugh, Milton W. Hollister, Jim H. Homan, Wirt Hoxie, James William Irving, Judge Irving Iverson, D.W. Duke Jadwin, Leland K. Carr, William K. Carr, Stephen Kellogg, Morris L. Kepner, John Colby, Charles Cruson, Lloyd E. Kronsnobel, Herbert P. Landis, Lowell E. Larson, Kenneth R. Larson, M.D., William H. Liljegren, Byron Edward Link, Jr., William Lothar, James McAfee, James Jack H. Martin, Richard R. Martin, Elvin A. McCullum, Don McCullum, Gary A. McDermott, Owen T. McDermott, James Woodrow McDowell, Clarence H. McGregor, Dr. Forrest McGuigan, Chris Meldy, Clinton G. Miller, Lewis Rice Miller, Daniel Thomas Mitchell, Thomas V. Nermoy, Robert E. Osborne, Myron Peterson, Arthur E. Pfeiffer,
Charles M. Pipkin, Marvin Price, William Rettling, Roland J. Rhodes, George J. Reha, Francis Buchanan Risser, Frank Risser, Earl Robbins, Donald E. Robinson, Victor Root, Dean Rutherford, Frank Samota, Lawrence E. Schaller, Alfred E. Schiller, Don Seberg, Jane E. Schmaltz, Keith Stewart, W. Theodore Sternweiss, Arthur A. Stern, Rilla M. Thomas, James T. Thurman, Willis B. Townsend, Ernest Trell, Bill Tucker, Raymond C. Escarpel, John E. Wade, Robert A. Wexstrom, Clarence Marbury White Jr., James Robert White, Willard L. Wilson, John N. Wright.
From other branches of service: Hiram Barney, William Barney, Howard Briggs, Tom Buchanan, H. Dean Cage, Richard C. Chapman, Neil Davis, James R. Daler, Abraham DeForest, William Desenjay, Treffer J. Evans, Jabez Elwell, Jack Gilchrist,
Will Gotas, Adonijah Griswold, Keith H. Jordan, Maurice Kepner, Cameron A. Madden, Charles A. Madden, David A. McGregor, Heman McLean, Calvin Mourns, Grace L. Page, Nina Peterson, Enoch E. Robbins, Martin Ryerson, William Wicks, and Dorothy McGuire Williamson.
And here are the latest additions to our list of veterans from Valley Presbyterian Church. From the United States Army, Stanton Young, Carl Snyder, Robert Bridge, Chuck Rydell, Harold Bader,
Ronald David, David Herzer, Robert Small, Edson Berg, Roger Fairco, Daniel Houck, William Meyer, Neil W. Sampson.
Tracy R. Thomas Jr., Charles Young, Joseph Singer Jr., Carl Snyder, William T. Reed, Robert Vandenberg, John Troy Williams, Renee Wendell Jr.
And from the U.S. Navy, Richard Foley, Emil Board, Don Sheehusen, Robert Turpin, James Draper,
James Lawrence, Aubrey Lee Turner, Herbert Blinn, John H. Berg, Ted Crow, William Hicks, Donald Risk.
from the U.S. Air Force, Walt Winnius Jr., Seth and Sally McKee,
Jeffrey McKeever, Bob Armstrong, Jim Papa Higgins.
From the United States Marine Corps, Arnie Swinson, Robert Seymour. From the United States Coast Guard, John Hamilton. From other branches, Martin Fiddick, Arthur Hooker, Jack House, Ralph Wickberg, David Herzer.
In America's cities and towns today, flags will be placed on graves in cemeteries. Public officials will speak of the sacrifice and the valor of those whose memory we honor. I have no illusions about what little I can add now to the silent testimony of those who gave their lives willingly for their country. Words are even more feeble on this Memorial Day, for the sight before us is that of a strong and good nation that stands in silence and remembers those who were loved and who, in return, loved their countrymen enough to die for them. Yet we must try to honor them, not for their sakes alone, but for our own. And if words cannot repay the debt we owe these men, surely with our actions, we must strive to keep faith with them and with a vision that led them to battle and a final sacrifice. Our first obligation to them and ourselves is plain enough. The United States and the freedom for which it stands, the freedom for which they died, must endure and prosper. Their lives remind us that freedom is not bought cheaply. It has a cost. It imposes a burden. And just as they whom we commemorate were willing to sacrifice, so too must we, in a less final, less heroic way, be willing to give of ourselves. Each died for a cause he considered more important than his own life. Well, they didn't volunteer to die. They volunteered to defend values for which men have always been willing to die if need be, the values which make up what we call civilization. And how they must have wished, in all the ugliness that war brings, that no other generation of young men to follow would have to undergo that same experience. As we honor their memory today, let us pledge that their lives, their sacrifices, their valor shall be justified and remembered for as long as God gives life to this nation. And let us also pledge to do our utmost to carry out what must have been their wish, that no other generation of young men will ever have to share their experiences and repeat their sacrifice. Earlier today, with the music that we have heard and that of our national anthem, I can't claim to know the words of all the national anthems in the world, but I don't know of any other that ends with a question and a challenge as ours does. Does that flag still wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? That is what we must do.